Hello. Yeah, so my name is Conlan Rios, and this is my talk, how I began my NFT journey as a metaverse land baron. Let me just get this. Yep, so I'm the founder and CEO of Async Art. And for those that aren't familiar, Async Art is an NFT creation platform for interactive and generative art and music. And you can see that's me on the left from 2017, and that's my Grifters PFP. Over time, you start to look like your PFP, so just be careful what you choose. So Async started in February 2020, and the biggest distinction between us and the other platforms is that on Async, you can tokenize individual layers of your work for ownership and offer these up for sale, as opposed to the final static piece. And then you can imbue these layers with abilities so they can be used to influence the overall master composition, essentially creating a collaboration between artist and collector. If you'd like to see an example, there is a charity piece called Maripol by the Guild. It's an auction right now in the art gallery over there. It has 13 ownable layers as opposed to just the overall piece. And each layer has multiple states that when you own that layer, you can then alter the master with a transaction. But today I'm going to talk about my journey and how I first got into NFTs, the metaverse, and how Async could not have started without it all. So my background in blockchain development began with DeFi in 2017. At that time, DeFi was by far the most exciting prospect in the space, and dApps were just starting to take off. And so I got my start basically building bots and applications within some of these communities at the time. My day job, however, was as a game developer. And I'm always, not only that, I'm big into VR, I'm big into cyberpunk, futuristic stuff. And so I've always been on the lookout for like new technologies, like new experiences using blockchain. And so one day in 2019, I discovered a game called Cryptovoxels. And Cryptovoxels, if you don't know, it's an online browser-based world. It's 3D, and it's been described by investor Andrew Steinwold as Minecraft on the blockchain, in that you can build structures block by block, but in order to do so, you have to own the underlying land token, which specifies the location, the bounds, and where you can build in this world. And there's a thriving economy around the trading of these parcels. So I was curious, and I bought my first parcel on OpenSea for about $95. And the neighborhood that I bought in was not really developed. There's a few structures, but there's a lot of kind of blank, empty space around. And so I just put up a SpongeBob, and I moved on to the next step. But it was around this time that I started collecting other NFTs. So I met an artist named Connie Digital on Twitter, and we did an NFT art exchange, so I did some development for him. He gave me an NFT of his work. I solved some puzzles in Quest by a mysterious crafter named No Shot, and I got an NFT trophy in return. I participated in an experiment called DAO Saka, which was like a DAO ICO. So it was like a short-term DAO that raised funds to commission crypto art for DevCon 5, and then the sales of those funds would then go back to the DAO fundraisers. So it was like a short-term DAO. And then lastly, I discovered a marketplace called Super Rare and began collecting some rare digital art. Luckily, it wasn't too expensive. Most pieces were like maybe under a little $100 or so it wasn't too bad. But this is where things got interesting. So as I began acquiring more NFTs, I wanted a place to share them, somewhere more exciting than just an OpenSea profile page. I wanted like a link, a destination where I could share with my friends and family and get them excited about what I was collecting. So I began building these galleries in Cryptovoxels and populating them with the NFTs that I was accumulating. And this became an addictive loop where I would fill up a gallery with my NFTs, buy more NFTs, need a new gallery, buy another parcel, build a gallery there, and just slowly propagate it out and just rinse and repeat. So at the same time that was happening, crypto art was taking off in other places. So on Scent, the social network, two artists, Black Box at Art, and Puffin started something called the Sent Cryptovoxels Art Tour. And this was like a series of connected parcels of notable galleries where you could explore art, and there was like a treasure hunt where you could solve puzzles and find things in each gallery. And it grew to be more than 30 connected parcels. So some notable parcels on the tour were Coldie's 3D art gallery, Point Shark's spiral art installation. These are actually animated in the real world, or real meta world. Skinny's Skull Gallery, and Xcopy's Snitch headquarters. He had a very cool component where you could install a fly spy on your parcel, and people could watch your parcel through his headquarters. Always the innovator. And then my gallery, one of my galleries was on the tour, and this was called the Rubik's. And you could see that I was making these QR code stickers. So Cryptovoxels worked surprisingly well on mobile. So if you scanned a link, a QR code, it would open up the Cryptovoxels art gallery on your phone, and you could be browsing an art gallery in 3D, on your phone. So I was basically sticking these in restaurant, bathrooms, gas stations, just anywhere, because I thought it was really magical that you could be in line, waiting for a movie, scan a QR code, and browse and maybe buy digital art. So if you go to the San Francisco Bay Area, you might see some of these around. So to navigate parcels on the art tour, you would click these portals, and they would take you on the journey. And this was in part because the parcels are really far apart, but also because while there were some amazing builds in Cryptovoxels, they'd often still be surrounded by these empty, blank, white parcels of land. Kind of underwhelming sometimes. So you had to zap from place to place to place. And it wasn't always the most thrilling to navigate in some parts of the world. So here's some more nice buildings surrounded by white parcels, blank. So bear with me here, it's all coming together. Another initiative that was happening at the time was the Origin City Market. And this was a collaboration, a group of landowners who collaborated. Edmund, Point Shark, Failure, Watermelon, and No Shot. And they were banding together to create a themed district where everything was immersive. And just like a homeowners association, if you wanted to be part of the Origin City Market, you had to conform to certain aesthetics to keep the area cohesive. So things like holiday decorations up during Christmas, you had to participate in that. Street lamps and benches and park benches and green grass. And your walls had to be black so the market would have a premium vibe. So if you're willing to conform to these aesthetics, you could be part of the Origin City Market. This is No Shot's Nowhere store. So there's some more shots. You can see that already this district was more interesting to walk around. It was more immersive. And so this is where I built a wearables consignment shop. So this was a shop where artists could sell their wearable NFTs out of. And because I wasn't an artist myself, and so they could sell their wearables out of it, and I would append my OpenSea referral code to the link. So if someone bought a wearable out of my shop, I would get a small percentage. And this is where that Breadbreaker 22 sold a monocle wearable to the creator of Cryptovoxels, Ben Nolan, because he came into the market, he bought it, and this is where I saw the power of an immersive district of what that could bring to the shopping and browsing experience. So this is where I started getting the idea that hey, maybe I should combine all my galleries into a single district and do the same thing. So the way Cryptovoxels worked at the time was that every Tuesday, the creator would mint new land and slowly flesh it out. And so this is where my real major NFT acquisition came into play, where I acquired about 30 parcels in this district called Gangnam with the goal of building a themed art district. And at the time, there were 3 people who owned a parcel there. And sometimes parcels would go unsold for days or weeks. So this is where I saw oh, there's 30 parcels in this district, no one's buying them, let me buy them up. And seeing as the district was called Gangnam, and I'm a huge cyberpunk fan, I want to build a themed neon night zone, kind of out of Snow Crash or something. So this is some of the inspiration for the neon zone. But I had to collaborate because there were 3 people who owned a parcel there, so I had to get them on board. So I reached out to one of the owners there, Chief Monkey, and I asked him about if he'd like to participate. He was totally down with it. And so I got the other two people on board, and we began planning out the district, which areas would be what the main thoroughfare would be. But I knew I was going to need help in building this district because my buildings were kind of boring, and they just weren't that good. So it was around this time that I had met another artist on Twitter, and he'd been building these incredible structures that looked nothing like what was in CV before. Like, these looked like actual buildings. And this was a lot of money. Yeah. And there's an amazing memorial. Carlos Marcial has built an amazing memorial around the corner. So after this, I do recommend you go check it out. Yeah. But if you don't know his builds, you definitely should explore them. They're next level. He puts Easter eggs and so many surprises inside them. And you never know if you actually have fully explored it once you've gone in. So you should definitely check him out. He was open for commissions, and after some initial conversations, he started on the first art gallery in the Neon Zone, which is the Rose Nexus. The GIF doesn't do it full justice, but it's an amazing gallery. It's my most prized NFT. And the build came out amazing. So it was everything I wanted. It was cyberpunk, it was neon, it was weird. This is exploration of the top floor. And more importantly, it set the tone for future buildings to come in the Neon Zone. So on the right here is another gallery built by Devil, a master builder in the Cryptovoxels universe. And you can see, it started to set the tone for these buildings to come. So as these galleries were developing, I was suddenly flush with gallery space and not enough NFTs to put in them. So this is where I was struck with another idea. What if I rented out art gallery space to artists who I knew was trying to expand their presence in this world? So I reached out to Shortcut, an artist who I collected from DAO Saka, and I proposed the idea. He was on board with a 3-month lease. But then we had the challenge of how do we enforce this? Because there was no on-chain option for granting collaborator access. So Shortcut had the idea, hey, what if you post a short note on Twitter to make it official? And basically by doing this, I was using my community's reputation as collateral. So if I sold this parcel immediately after, well, it would tank all my chances of doing future projects in this space. So this worked, And I began making like a leasing guide, like a PDF with like all like the galleries I had, some of the rules that came with some of the galleries. It would show you like where the gallery was, what the bounds were, etc. If I leased the gallery to an artist, I would mark it as leased. And one thing to note is these ETH prices, ETH was a lot lower back then, so this was not, I wasn't charging artists that much. So there's, some of the galleries. So I ended up leasing land to many artists, people like Hackatao, Xcopy, Coldy, a lot of money, Blackbox.art. Maker's Place headquarters, they ended up acquiring a parcel in the Neon Zone on the promise that they would hire a lot of money to also build this museum for them, and so that worked out pretty well. And Maker's Place hosted some events and meet and greets out of there for the next year or so. This is another gallery in the Neon Zone. This is a shot of the Neon Zone in development. You can see that we were building these blimps, these voxel blimps, and these would fly. They weren't actually flying or animated, but they were just in the air like they were. This is a Japanese Zen garden built by Point Shark, kind of a solace from the hustle and bustle outside. Okay, and so this is where I had another idea. To generate more demand and foot traffic for the Neon Zone, what if we began discussing crypto art in the Neon Zone? And so this is where we formed the idea of the Gangnam Art Club. Meet once a month. Blackbox.art made this amazing poster. A lot of money made these voxel models for outside the Rose Nexus where you could display the artwork. And the idea was, it was platform agnostic. It didn't matter where you minted your art. Anyone could submit artwork to be discussed. And then once a month, we would put up like some selection of pieces and discuss them. No mention of price floor, none of that stuff. Just talk about the art. And if the artist was around, we'd bring them in world to answer questions and talk about it. And so we had a lot of big artists come through, artists like Big Comic Art, Max Osiris, Robness, Hakatao, Frenetic Void, Osinachi, Matthew from Scent, a bunch of people coming through every month and just talking about art with a bunch of other weird people. And then Urban and the late Rowlight was also people who came through. And so this is where it comes back to async art. So the genesis piece of async art, this is the First Supper, everything you see in this work is a separate ownable layer token. So as opposed to just tokenizing the entire static PNG, each character and floor and part of this room is an ownable layer token. And even the wallpaper is a token. And when you own that layer, you can then choose which state or which ability you want to activate on the master and collaborate with the artist. So you're essentially becoming part of the artwork by owning the layers here. And the reason why this was all possible is that this is a collaboration between 13 different artists. Matt Kane, Shortcut, MLibT, Connie Digital, Josie, Xcopy, Blackbox.art, Hakatao, Coldy, Vans Design, Twisted Vacancy, A Lot of Money, Rutger Vandertas. Most of these artists were leasing land from me at the time in the Neon Zone. So the conversation was very easy about, hey, do you want to try this new experiment? Because I already had the relationship with them. The master token, which represents the overall composition as a whole, and one of the layers, I believe the finger, the finger on the layer, that's owned by Metacoven, the famous collector. And this piece has been described as one of the crown jewels of his collection. And so basically, async art would not have been possible without the journey and the connections and friends I made along the way. And so I guess getting close to the end here, A Lot of Money made a short video, 30 seconds, when this piece first launched. So I'll play it now. This shows some of the possible, all the different layers and states, and shows you how the piece can change, because each layer character here has different states you can choose from. And I think there's about 20 different collectors who collectively own the piece right now. And that's about it. So, yeah.